Hello again. So Team Sky have it. They are exactly where they want to be. After a season of steep learning curves, they're finally beginning to taste success in front of home crowds. And talking of steep learning curves, that's exactly what awaits them today at the finish line in Swansea with the cobbled climb up to Constitution Hill. Everything might get shaken up again in GC today, just like it did yesterday, in fact. Easy as you go out of Stoke, Andre Greipel still in yellow and everyone watching everyone else to see what sort of break would emerge. In the end, when they did get it together, it was a force to be reckoned with. 18 riders, including Bradley Wiggins, Greg Henderson and Geraint Thomas, flying the green flag for Sky. Mr Aggressive Richie Port attacked on the final climb of the day at Gun Hill to nick the Mountains jersey. Then the remaining 15 in the break got it together with Thomas and Wiggins powering away at the front to set it up for a helter-skelter finish.
Here they come, the concluding stages. It's very, very tight indeed. Henderson takes the left-hander. He's got about a 10-metre lead here. And the Kiwi for the Sky team celebrates.
Greg Henderson then on the podium, lapping it up in Stoke, as indeed was the Lord Mayor. Every inch is proud.
It's our 100 years centenary and 100 miles. And to get Bradley Wiggins here and get all the stars that you normally see on TV, I can actually stand on the side of the road, watch them, and actually pay nothing to watch them, because that's what cycling does for you, and that's absolutely fantastic from a Stokes point of view.
Yep, a perfect plan, pretty much perfectly executed on the day by Team Sky, Dean.
Yeah, definitely. They got 3 guys in the breakaway, did a hell of a lot of work on the front for the finale, and Greg Henderson took the stage victory.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, they didn't exactly take him all the way to the line, did they? He had plenty to do on his own.
Yeah, he had quite a lot to do. He followed the wheels, and his sprinter's instinct came out clearly, and he hit out quite early and held on with a couple of bike lengths. So fantastic win by Greg Henderson. As
a fellow pro, Dean, you would have appreciated what Geraint Thomas did on the front of that lead out.
Yeah, he was on the front for possibly 10k. I know I couldn't do something like that, but he's said to be tired. He's retired from the World Championship selection, so he obviously wasn't tired yesterday. So great job by Geraint.
He's a monster on the front, isn't he? And it was very telling then that when he peeled off and Bradley Wiggins was left alone, he really didn't last that much longer, did he?
It was a one long line of riders, so you know, Bradley did his bit and got out of there, and Greg finished it off.
Absolutely, yeah. Very impressive individual performance by Geraint Thomas and by the whole team. Now, about today. One man who knows better than most what to expect from today's course is Matt Stevens from Sigma Sport. The former British road champion and veteran of the Giro d'Italia rode the Pro Tour in '99. That was the last time that our national race visited Swansea. Sigma Sport may not have the big money budget of Team Sky, but in Matt Stevens, they at least have a man with a Bradley Wiggins haircut. Matt, 1999, the Pro Tour, Swansea. What are your memories? Talk us through it.
Very similar route to today. Taking the Black Mountain. There was a particularly tough selection over the Black Mountain. I think about 30 of us managed to crest over the top in the lead. Yeah, I remember it being quite misty, and we're riding through the mist. You could only see about 50 metres in front, so it was pretty horrible because you couldn't see the top. It's like, when's the top, when's the top? But then we dropped down into Swansea and hit Constitution Hill, and we did it 2 or 3 times, I seem to remember, and the lead group fragmented considerably. And I think today is going to be, you know, it's really going to be decisive over there. I think a break might go early on, but Sky will probably ride it. But as the contenders are in such close proximity to each other, I think Constitution Hill will be extremely decisive and could decide the overall.
And what about yourself? We'll see you figuring a break? I mean, how are the legs these days?
The legs, yeah, maybe not quite the same legs as I had 10 years ago, but no, I'm extremely motivated. They've got good condition. The team are riding really well, and we're gonna ride aggressively today and try and get in the early move.
Dean, you must have ridden against him and with him often, I should imagine.
Yeah, over the last few years racing in the UK, but Matt's been a great professional. I think he was one of the last riders to get a top 10 placing in the world as an amateur before it went professional in Colombia back in '95. So he's been around a long time. I hope people won't mind me saying that, but he's still a great rider here on the Tour of Britain.
Some achievement that, and if you can get over the mountains of Colombia, then presumably you can get yourself up Constitution Hill in Swansea. Now let's have a look at exactly what today's stage looks like in graphical form, with a little bit of cheeky music playing underneath. Stage 3, and it's all about the cobbled Constitution. Newtown may provide the launch pad, but as the race hurtles south, the nearer they get to the Black Mountain, the more they'll be thinking about the nation's steepest residential road in Swansea. The whole stage is just shy of 150 kilometres, but it might all come down to the final 2 with those nasty 300 metres of climb. Right then, here we go, Wales in just under 60 seconds. Obviously there are mountains to climb, big ones too, although it is possible to cheat. But that's not all. Far from it, as you can see by this extremely impressive stream of Welsh consciousness. It's the first time the tour's come back here since 2004, which, given what you've just seen in these clips, is probably far too long. Well, that was Wales on a slightly sunnier day, and by the magic power of television, I've transported myself from Newtown all the way to the finish line, almost the finish line in Swansea, and unearthed a local Swedish legend. Magnus Backstedt, you live just up the road here, don't you?
Yeah, I live about 40 minutes away from here now, so I've been here for about 5 years.
Constitution Hill, where we are, is familiar to you, isn't it, Magnus? You've ridden it before. Walk us through it.
Well, I rode it back in 1998, I think, 99 it was. Yeah. And, you know, it's an absolute monster of a climb, especially when you come into towards the back end of the race. And when it's like today, you know, wet day, problem you're going to have is obviously getting the traction to get up it. So you'll probably find that more part of the riders will be having to sit down on the hill to actually even get up it. And, you know, I think it's about 14% up here. And
I'm sure it's more than that. I mean, it feels like 20, it's got to be upwards of, well, let's just exaggerate, it's enormous.
It is.
You told me you had a bet once with Stuart O'Grady and a couple of others that you would get up in the big ring.
Yeah, we did, back in 99, we did have a big bet on to see who could actually ride up it in the big ring, and all of us made it, so the bet was kind of off at the end of the day.
Whatever it is, I mean, if you see it with the naked eye, and I don't know if you just want to swing the camera around and show the extent of it there, and there's a car struggling to come down it without losing his grip. I mean, it is extraordinary, and it could have a serious impact on the race today, couldn't it?
Well, definitely. I think, you know, if there's a smaller group coming in here, and, you know, it's a hard stage before we actually get to Constitution Hill as well. So when they get here, I think there'll be a lot of tired legs already, and it will have a big impact on the race, definitely.
Okay, now Magnus Backstedt is not really that tall compared to me. That's just a trick of the gradient. Let's get the race underway. Here are your commentators, Hugh Porter and Graham Jones.
Well, this is the start of stage 3 in Newtown, and the riders today are going to pedal all the way to Swansea, 93 miles. It is a tough test today, 1 third category climb and 2 first cat. So the riders are going to be tested to the limit, and I'm pleased to say the conditions here in Newtown are dry, but from the weather forecasts I've seen, they are actually predicting rain later in the day. And rain on a stage like today will certainly not be welcome.
It certainly won't, especially after the stage 1 conditions, and then going into slightly warmer and sunnier conditions yesterday. I think they would have been a bit optimistic.
Well, there's Greg Henderson, who had a stormer of a ride on yesterday's stage when he finished first in Hanley, and that, of course, has given him the yellow jersey. But of course he's got 1 or 2 big players around him who are going to be keen to try and take that away from him. Albacini and Hausler, they're pretty close, so we'll be looking out for them during the stage as it unfolds. Great day for the school kids. Okay, the term started, but they've been given the day off.
That's right. I mean, we do a lot of work with the schools in advance. We have to do a lot even before the school holidays in the summer, and it's always a great sight to see the school kids out at the side of the road.
Now let me just tell you straight away, the first climb of the day comes after 5.2 miles. It's a third category ascent, so not too hard, and it's called Gwynant, but there are points available on the top, 4, 3, 2 and 1, and an attack beginning to unfold. Martin here trying to go away, and of course Martin is the man that won the Tour of Poland, and looking at today's terrain, he could be one of the men to figure.
Well, I actually did think that Dan Martin was one of the overall contenders, but unfortunately missed the move yesterday, and I wouldn't mind betting that he does try at some time to win one of these next couple of stages.
And it's good to see Ian Bibby. Now Bibby is the British cyclocross champion, but he can climb well and sprint well, and he had a cracking Tour series where he won 2 of the rounds. So he, with Martin, may just develop this move.
Yes, it's early days, and it's not really that much of a difficult climb. It's really only a drag, really. But it's nice to have a little climb in at the start to loosen the legs up.
But it is nice to see Dan Martin keen and eager to get on with it, and he's established already, thanks to that kick off the front of the peloton, a window of advantage of 8 seconds. Not a lot, as you say, but of course other riders might try and bridge to him, and then that's how a break can develop.
Yeah, there's a lot of flat roads on this stage, although it's very difficult towards the end, the last 30 miles or so. A lot of it's along valley roads and good roads that potentially could form breakaways.
Good racing countryside, and there's a slight fragmentation at the front of the main field, but Dan Martin, he's really eager to get on with this, and Bibby is coming through to take his turn at the front. The old bit and bit technique, that's the cycling parlance to describe how they work. Each rider does his piece on the front and then allows the other man to come through. Well, it's stretching out, Graham, 15 seconds.
It is. I just saw a little group also just getting off the front of the peloton, and I think on today's stage it is very windy again, and I think 2 riders in the lead is going to be really tough, so they could do with a little bit of help.
But a nice move in the early stages always creates a platform for the others to jump to, and if they did get some company, maybe they'll profit from this. But Dan Martin, with that look on his face, as much as to say, well, I've looked at the terrain today, and this is the stage where I'm going to show the rest that I'm here in the event.
Yeah, I think it's a big stage for Dan Martin today. As we said, he hasn't got any real chance of an overall victory now, so he will be looking for stage wins.
The man that's been at the back, here he is. We've had several shots of him. That's Ed Clancy, a man who's a world champion on the track for the Omnium and a gold medal winner for Beijing. Now, for Ed Clancy, who's a cracking sprinter, he is not going to like this at all. But here we are, the two are being pulled back, and it looks very much to me as though it's going to be status quo as we get nearer to that first ascent.
It is. It looked like it was the Ampos team that were doing most of the work at the front there, but a little bit of hesitation, and I think it's just another attack there from HTC Columbia.
Well, HTC Columbia have got some powerful riders in their team, and just to refer to my earlier comment, Albacini is lying second overall, only 14 seconds back on Henderson, and Hausler is pegged on the same deficit. They were both, of course, up there in the move yesterday with Henderson, but it's quite surprising, really, that Henderson is the man in yellow. I would have thought maybe Wiggins or Geraint Thomas.
It is. I mean, I would have thought that yesterday, having seen the 3 of them in the breakaway, and with the stages that are to come, I would have guessed that Bradley Wiggins and Geraint Thomas were more suited to an overall contender.
Well, they worked very hard yesterday to get the advantage. They've just crossed the sign. There it is on the left, and that tells us that they are on the foot slopes of climb number 1, third cat, and this is called Gwynant. Not too tough, Graham.
No, it isn't, and I don't think this will have any real effect on the race. It's not going to split them, I don't think, but it's more for points, I think, on this climb.
Of course, what it is all about is the riders that are contesting the King of the Mountains defending their positions, and the leader is Richie Port. He's got 35 points, the talented Australian, and he is actually 11 ahead of Hoogland, the Dutchman, and Port is right near the front as an attack is beginning to develop on the right-hand side of the road. The black livery there of Cervelo, Jeremy Hunt, the sprinter, is actually trying to go away here on a big climb.
Yeah, maybe he thought he was trying to lead out one of his teammates. There's an attack by Vacon Soleil.
And that's Wouter Pauwels, who actually ended stage 1 with the most points and pulled on the King of the Mountains jersey. So he's lying third overall, but Hunt hung on to second from Hoogland, and Port in 4th spot. So it means Hoogland has clawed 1 point back on Port, but of course the Aussie is still 10 points ahead. So a lot of action here in the early stages. They're all really eager to get on with it. We'll take a break. Well, welcome back. The field all back together, and we're heading now towards Llandrindod-Wells, and that's the first sprint here on stage 3. 1 and 2 riders keen to get on with this at the front. Columbia, very noticeable on the head of the peloton.
Yeah, they're obviously looking to have a big day today, and this is one of what I would call 2 really big days in the hills now, and I think these are going to be the 2 decisive days.
Well, it's Garmin at the front here as we are now on the approach to the first sprint in Llandrindod-Wells. That's at the 23-mile point, and time bonuses are available here. 3 to the first, 2 to second, and 1 to third. And you can see that Dan Martin has now taken a place right near the back in front of Clancy, having been very prominent at the front earlier on. Now, here we go. This is the build-up then for the sprint. And Port is there, you can see him, he is a second wheel back, but Columbia are also evident. Vacon Soleil have got representation, 3 riders beginning to go clear.
Yeah, and also I think Team Sky are looking to lead this one out for Greg Henderson as well.
So they're all anxious trying to get these odd seconds, aren't they? Albacini is lying second at 14 seconds, remember, overall. And now here they are beginning to drop their foot on the pedal, and it is Team Sky beginning to lead this one out as they're closing towards the line. The rider from Team Sky, he's trying to turn the screw here to get the points and the 3 seconds. You can see further back the yellow jersey. It is the yellow jersey of Team Sky rider Greg Henderson, but he's being squeezed out of it because he's pressurised by the riders from Vacansoleil. And oh, it was close on the line. Hausler got it on the line. 3-second bonus there for Hausler. We'll need to just confirm the other places, but that could be quite important. Yes, 2 seconds to Bozic and 1 to Albacini. So they're both closed down there on Henderson on the overall. This is Cameron Meyer, the young talented Australian triple world champion, eager to get on with it, and that little injection of pace has pulled him clear of the field.
Well, we're still on the flat roads in the valleys, and often we've seen before in the Tour of Britain that a lot of the moves do actually go on the flat, and they're not always the decisive breaks are made on the hills.
Well, after that sprint, which was about 10 miles back, of course they're getting their second wind now, and if you can get clear before the next climb, it's always to your advantage. Well, I suppose any route will count.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, riders will always be looking for the shortest route to take any move up the peloton. It's off.
It was only a few metres, wasn't it? But he jumped that curve magnificently. Well, speed quite high here as they weave their way through the narrow streets. And we've been to Wales before, Graham, and we've always had some fantastic racing, haven't we?
We have. I mean, we did come to Wales in 2004, the first year that we brought the Tour of Britain back, staged around Newport, which is, I think, if I remember correctly, it was 3 laps of a sort of 40 kilometre circuit, but it was nothing like as hilly as what we've got today.
Yeah, it finished around in the Celtic Manor area. But what was your thinking today, the way you've planned this? I mean, you've got the ascent to the Black Mountain, which is enough to frighten anybody, and that comes after 70 miles.
Well, I mean, we've been looking for trying to toughen the race up this year, and we decided that we're going to start from Newport and Swansea as a finish. And looking at the route, I saw Black Mountain, and I thought I've got to go and investigate that. And when I saw it, I thought we just had to have this in the race this year. Well,
it's a good shout. It's a good shout if the weather stays dry, but if it follows what was predicted earlier and we get rain, then it could be horrendous. Now, look at this. There's several riders coming up to join Meyer. About 8 or 9 here, and looking from here to recognise 1 or 2 of them. I can't see any of the big players, so this is fortuitous, and it may be something that the big riders will allow to slip away and give them their chance.
Yeah, it's quite possible. They are riding into quite a strong headwind now, as you can see by the foliage at the side of the road there blowing, but it's forming nicely. They look like they're starting to work together, and it may well suit Sky to let this breakaway go.
Well, there's rain starting to appear on our lenses here. You can see it. Now, that is not a good sign, but it was interesting to see that on the head of the main field were 5 riders from Team Sky.
Yeah, well, they'll be probably quite happy that this breakaway's gone. I think it's all about just keeping a tempo and keeping them at a reasonable distance, but at the moment it's just got up to 2 minutes.
And I can tell you that the composition of the group, the nearest that any of the riders is in general classification is 11 minutes back. That's due, of course, to yesterday's stage in Stoke, which finished very interestingly with that group ahead. Now, searching for racing capes in the back pocket, or was it some food? But the lights are on with the following cars, and the rain is beginning to pepper down. Now, these conditions are going to be very tough indeed when we get to the mountain.
They are, but this move should actually suit Sky. As you're saying, there's nobody really well placed overall, so they can afford to let this break get a few minutes.
11 minutes is the distance that the top rider in that breakaway trails the yellow jersey. That's Ian Bibby, the face of concentration, that man from Preston, who is a brilliant all-rounder. The composition of this leading group, we've got Cameron Meyer, the Australian, Evan Oliphant, Simon Richardson, Ian Bibby, Mark McNally, Stijn Niereng, a Belgian on the top sport team, Albert Timmer, who's riding for Skill, and then Pim Lechert, who is a Dutchman riding for Vacansoleil. Look at the lead now, 3:51, and there's an Italian in this group as well, Graham, and that's Ilia Favilli, 21 years of age, quite a talented rider actually. He finished 3rd in the World Junior Champs a few years ago. They're working well, aren't they?
They are working well, and as you can say, the conditions are horrendous now, and I dread to think what conditions are awaiting them on Black Mountain, especially with this wind.
Visibility will be difficult, and of course the descent will be dangerous, but that lead is certainly building very, very nicely, and Team Sky still seem content to tap it out on the front.
Yeah, they've, as I say, no reason at all to chase this down and panic or anything at the moment, and can save themselves for later on and look at closing the gap down if they need to, or even other teams to close that gap down if they want to win the stage.
That rider that we saw just going back down the line on the inside in the red and black, that's actually Simon Richardson, comes from near Bristol. But look at the sprint here for the points over the line in sprint number 2 at Llangadog, and that was Lineheart that took it from Vacon Soleil ahead of Mark McNally. Oliphant third, Richardson coming in fourth. Of course, they've picked up seconds there, but it will mean nothing because they're 11 minutes back from the yellow jersey. But the signs are good here for this group. They may well be given a head of steam with a chance of having a go for the stage. Well, welcome back, and I can tell you the blue touch paper has really been lit now. The leading group on the foot slopes of the long climb, and there it is, the start. They've got an advantage of 3:25, and this mountain, Black Mountain, is about 7 kilometres long.
It is. It's fairly easy the first kilometre or two, and then you get onto the steeper slopes. You've got a couple of nice hairpin bends, and I think once they've gone around the first hairpin bend, it does turn into a headwind, but then later on in the climb they may well have a sort of tail crosswind, so that could prove really decisive.
Maya on the front here at the moment, Richardson just to his left, but of course the conditions, they are appalling, aren't they?
They are, and the wind is howling, and there's not going to have nobody's going to have an easy day today.
Certainly not. Sky still doing the driving on the front, so I think they're still content with the composition of that group.
They must be, and also they must feel fairly confident in Greg Henderson's ability to get over this climb.
So no change in the leading group, but that lead at 3:25 is a nice, useful working cushion, and you can see already it's beginning to ramp up as the riders are forced to come out of the saddle and dance on the pedals. And it's like this all the way, isn't it? It keeps going, it forces you to get out of the saddle, and then you settle back into your rhythm.
Yes, it's a fairly even grading. Once you get onto the steeper part of the climb, it is fairly even all the way to the top. It's a pity we're not going to see it in all its glory with the sun shining, and it is almost like a mini Pyrenean climb.
Fantastic, wonderful scenery, but as you say, the weather very, very dreary indeed, but it hasn't dampened the spirits of the Tour of Britain, and they are really giving us a fantastic race today. Still Team Sky then on the front of the main field, and they are of course looking after the interests of the overall race leader Greg Henderson. Evan Oliphant on the front of the leading group here. He'll be away to the Commonwealth Games in New Delhi to represent Scotland, and he's competed in those games before. But 14 seconds, it's a scant advantage, and that's been nibbled away a little bit by seconds gain on the first sprint by Albacini and Hausler. Is that really worth defending, Graham?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's still, they've got to get over these next 2 or 3 days, but the final 3 stages are certainly easily defendable, and you've got to give it a try. 14 seconds. I mean, they put all the effort in to try and get him to win the stage yesterday, so they must be thinking that they can defend it.
But they did expend a lot of energy on yesterday's stage.
They did, and also doing a lot again today, and in these sort of conditions, it does take its toll.
Former world champion Bert Grabsch and Marco Pinotti, the Italian, doing a good team job for Colombia. As Cameron Meyer, well, he looks as though he's had enough of his breakaway companions, and Meyer here, he's trying to go clear on his own.
Yeah, he's decided that they're not going fast enough, and he's going to make every effort to try and get away and maybe go for the stage win on his own. It's once he gets over the climb, there is quite a lot of fast descending into the outskirts of Swansea, so he has got a reasonable chance of staying away.
And there's also another advantage really as well, because if you're on your own in the descent, you can pick the safest line, can't you, if you're following a wheel on these kind of conditions?
Yeah, you can, but probably one of the things that will go against him is the fact that it is still very windy.
And it's still quite a long way as well from the top of the climb to the finish, but Meyer finding a nice rhythm, and he's gone clear from that group by about 35 metres as they're starting to eat up the kilometres on Black Mountain. This is the field beginning to thin out a little bit here as they hug the side of the road, trying to keep out of the wind. And you see his nice, easy, relaxed style. 11 minutes and 9 seconds. He actually trails the yellow jersey after the 2 stages. So he's certainly no threat to Henderson. In fact, that's another nice move. It's in favour of Sky, isn't it?
It is, and they've no reason to chase this group down at all, really. They're no threat whatsoever.
The 2 danger men they've got to keep an eye on, of course, are Martin and Albacini. Martin's not high up on the GC, but he's just staying close to his team leader. And if he can get him to the top of this climb with him not extending too much energy, then of course he could be a man that could figure on the descent and try and build a lead as they go towards Swansea.
He's certainly keeping a good rhythm there, looking very comfortable. He's actually looking back down the mountain to see where the chasers are, and we've actually just got one chaser there about 100 metres behind him.
So there is the remnants of the group that Meyer has left, and it looked like 1 or 2 other riders just in the distance as well. As we go back to the main field, well, the 2 Columbia boys have slipped back a little bit now off the front of the main field, but still a long way to go to the summit. Keeping a nice high speed here. They're making a fist of it, but this is the man that's putting the rest under the sword, and that of course is Cameron Meyer. He really is moving.
I think he's just looking ahead there to see where the top of the climb is, and it's going up slowly into the mist, and I think the visibility is going to get pretty poor as we get nearer the top.
And of course conditions like this give us no opportunity at all to be able to take any helicopter shots. They wouldn't be able to see down through the mist, but we've got a perfect view here of the action, and that tells us what's happening behind. There's damage here, isn't there, forming, and that's all because of the pressure being applied here, right on the sharp end of the field.
Yeah, it's the pressure applied by Vacon Soleil, and the peloton has split as I expected, and I do expect that this could even split even more.
It's brutal, isn't it? It's a savage climb. It's the length, isn't it, that wears you down. It's a war of attrition almost. The riders, they set that tempo that puts you in the zone where you're uncomfortable.
We can actually also see, there's a good shot there, you could see the gradient. You know, it's not just like a long drag over the moors. This is a proper climb.
A wearing down process, but the man that really is tackling the hill best of the field is Cameron Meyer, this young Aussie with a tremendous future ahead of him. And behind in the main field, these are the chasers, and between this group and of course Meyer are the remnants of the leading group. Now then, the question you've got to ask yourself is, where is Henderson, the yellow jersey?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit confusing there. We've got a yellow cape in that group.
Certainly
we can assure you that that's actually not the yellow jersey.
I think that's one of the ISD riders, and that is very misleading, isn't it? Because when you look at that, you'd immediately think, there's the yellow jersey, the race leader. But I can't see him as I'm looking back through the field here, but I can see the riders from Columbia, and those are the 2 that we saw early on, and that's Martin and Albacini. So they're obviously riding to a game plan.
Well, I think they may well have seen Greg Henderson in a little bit of difficulty, and they've decided to take the initiative here, and this may be, well, a good opportunity for them to get away.
And on a climb with this length, they can certainly make up some very useful time. Here we are, right at the head of the main field. It's still Tony Martin, and behind him you can see there's some other useful rides. Looks like Wiggins is in this group as well.
It is also a rider from Enduro. I'm not sure. It looks like a fairly big lad. It could be Jack Bauer, which would be a hell of a ride if he was to get in this breakaway, having sort of seen him struggling a little bit on the first day.
He kept losing contact on the climbs, didn't he, on the stage to Blackpool, and he was away in that 3-man break that dominated the stage.
He did, and this is another category of climb altogether to what we had on the first day.
So he's obviously got the good legs on today, Jack Bauer, as they're coming up to the summit of the climb, and generous support there then for the Aussie Meyer as he crests the top of the hill first. Now then, he's going to set himself up for a fast descent, and I want to see just what's happening behind, because those 2 riders from Columbia were actually bringing the 3rd group up the mountain that was chasing down the remnants of the break, and behind that is the yellow jersey Henderson. So this is a real sort out, and look at the conditions now.
I know, they've just got worse and worse as we go along. It's the 2nd rider on the road.
That's a lone rider coming over the top for 2nd spot. That's Leckhart from Vacon Soleil. And here are the rest of the break, and they of course are going over the line for 3rd. That's Ian Bibby. Good riding by Bibby there in 3rd spot, and Simon Richardson was 4th, and just behind him was Nering, who was on the Top Sport team. Now then, Meyer with a bit between his teeth on the descent. Well, still got quite a long way to go, but he's in a good position. Matteo Carrara, the Italian on the Vacon Soleil team, leading this third group on the road. And his teammate just tucked into the wheel. And you can see just behind is Tony Martin and also Richie Porte's on the right.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Richie Porte over the last couple of days, and this is really a strong-looking group, and this is going to take some catching. It may well be a difficult day now for Greg Henderson.
Well, I said yesterday was the defining day of selection, but I tell you what, I think this is more important still.
It is, and you can see the conditions there descending in the fog. It's not a really technical descent, it's fairly straightforward, just a couple of S-bends just near the bottom of the descent.
Mountains over, they're on the descent now. They're pulling the zips up on their jerseys, one or two of these riders, but you can see straight away the brace of riders from Colombia have gone to the head here, and at the front is Tony Martin and Albacini sitting in second wheel, and they look very much to me as they want to get on with this.
Well, they mean business now. They're putting their heads down. They've obviously had some time checks and know that Greg Henderson is losing time, and they're really going to go for it now.
And this is a great opportunity, isn't it, for the brace of Colombia boys, because Greg Henderson is still climbing to the summit of the mountain.
Welcome back as we pick up the action. Cameron Meyer is nearing the outskirts of Swansea, but behind him, the HTC pairing of Tony Martin and Michael Albacini have swept up the remains of the initial breakaway on the descent of Black Mountain and now have the lone leader in their sights.
So Meyer is about to get company. The catch is imminent just behind. They're almost up to Meyer as we look back to the main field. And remember, the yellow jersey is ensconced in this group of riders. But he's losing time, and the men at the front turning the screw look to be set to rejig the overall classification. Here they are right on the front, the two men that are causing the damage, Tony Martin and of course it's Michael Albacini.
Yeah, they've picked up the remnants of those breakaway riders, so it's nice to see people like Simon Richardson and Ian Bibby in the break still.
Yeah, Bibby's had a great day. Richardson, you can see, third wheel back in the black and the red for Sigma Sports Specialised, and also doing a good ride today is Mark McNally for the Anposh Sean Kelly in the green.
Yeah, well, they're coming very close up to the finishing circuit. We've got a loop of just over 4 kilometres, including the climb of Constitution Hill, and that's going to be very interesting.
When we get through Kingsway, it's 2.5 mile loop to tidy it up. And of course, we've been to Constitution Hill before. That was back in 1999 when Raimundas Rumsas, the Lithuanian, won the stage, just getting rid of Jens Voigt in the closing stages. I just wonder if we're going to end up with a couple contesting the sprint finish here. But it is Martin doing all the driving, and Albacini is profiting from this.
Yeah, it's great work from Tony Martin, considering he was struggling a little bit yesterday. But Sky are still chasing at the head of the peloton, trying to bring this gap down.
They are. It just lips up a little bit there, doesn't it? But this is absolutely nothing compared with what's waiting for them. 5 kilometres to go, 3 miles, so they're approximately half a mile now from the line.
Yes, Tony Martin doing great work here. He's not thinking of anything but getting Albacini to the foot of that climb and getting as much time gap between himself and the group of Greg Henderson.
Yep, he's getting an armchair ride, isn't he? Now this is the chasing group. They're on that greasy descent, and they've got, as I say, a lot of work to do if they want to try and keep this gap close. Still at the front then, the HTC Columbia riders as they come into the finishing funnel, and there's a very big crowd here. They've stood there all day in the pelting rain, and I tell you what, they're going to be treated to a superb grand finale.
Well, I certainly don't expect this group to still all be together after the climb of Constitution Hill, but who can get away, or we're going to see who really is the strongest rider now.
Up to the line. Couple of twists and turns before they turn to face it, and of course it's cobbles, isn't it, Graham? So they'll be looking to try and find a smooth path.
It's cobbles, but there is a little smooth path either side of the road. It's more paving stone, so it does give it a slightly easier ride, but there is a little climb before they get to Constitution Hill, which is also going to hurt the legs.
And let's not forget, as they're approaching this hill, they've got in their legs, as you refer to them, about 90 miles. So it's going to be a weary ascent for one or two of them. Still at the front, we've got Team Sky. Just caught a glimpse back there of the yellow jersey of Greg Henderson. Now he must be really concerned.
He is. Also saying there is Richie Port, so it's not only Greg Henderson that's missed out on that move.
Yep, but Richie Port will be able to fly up this climb because he is the king of the mountain, so that's not going to frighten him. Greg Henderson, well, that's a different kettle of fish. He's a big fella, a sprinter.
He is, but the sort of guys like that can normally get off this. This is typical sort of climb you get in Belgium classics.
3 kilometres to go. You saw the blue sign there on the side of the road. Now, I'm just waiting to see Tony Martin to swing over. He was in the break yesterday on stage 2 and then blew near the end and lost a lot of time, but he's recovered well and he's doing a fantastic job here for his teammate Albacini, who's a former winner of the Tour of Austria, and he's won a couple of stages in the Tour of Switzerland in his career. Hasn't had a win this year, but he may well place himself in yellow at the end of this.
Yeah, the riders you can see out of the saddle there. This is a tough little climb before the right turn, and you've got about 500 metres before the sharp left, and almost Constitution Hill almost immediately after the left turn.
It's the hors d'oeuvre, isn't it, that, Graham?
It is, yeah. Just just to take the just to hurt their legs a little bit more.
You do plan these. You don't plan these routes, do you, with the pain in your legs that you had as a pro?
I would have actually planned a route like this for myself, I think.
Yeah, I think this would have suited you definitely. And of course, all riders excel in different departments. Some on the climbs, some in the sprint, some in the time trial. But here, I think we're going to see Albacini, the Swiss man, trying to profit from this incredible amount of work that his teammate Martin has done once they do get onto the climb.
Well, there's nobody going to give him a turn on the front at the moment, is there? They're just leaving it all down to him.
Pace is too high, isn't it? But of course, Martin is a brilliant time trialer, having won a bronze in the World Time Trial Championships, and that's why he can just keep turning that gear relentlessly at the front. Now they're getting near to the turn for the climb.
They are, and you've got about literally 100 metres of tarmac road, and then it kicks up all the way to the top. 1 in 5.
So a 1 in 5 facing these riders, and when they do crest the summit, they can almost look down and see the finish. Look at the cobbles here. Now they're searching, aren't they, for the smoother path at the side. But look at the contrasting riding styles here. Albacini sitting in the saddle in that typical crouching climbing style with his hands in the middle of the bars and the rest just clinging to his wheel.
Yeah, there's different styles there. 1 or 2 are getting out the saddle, like you say. But now Albacini's also getting out of the saddle. But McNally's still holding on to his wheel.
He is. He's doing a good rider. McNally, the An Post man in green, but look at this, they're almost forced to a standstill. The crowd are loving the action. Albacini is really piling on the pressure, and it's Ian Bibby on the right that's going well here as well.
Yeah, Ian Bibby doing a great ride there, but there's just a little gap. It's only about 10 metres at the moment, but if that opens up a little bit more, he only needs 4 or 5 seconds at the top, and it'll be difficult to catch him.
There's a yellow jersey of Henderson, and he's trying to get back into the wheel of Richie Port, because Port went through our shot just ahead of Henderson. But the gap is beginning to stretch out now, and Albacini is going away.
Yeah, just about 20 metres. It's inch by inch on this sort of climb.
The crowd are getting a fantastic view here of this incredible bike race. And here are 1 or 2 of the back markers just limping over the line as we come back to the summit. And Albacini is the man that is going to get to the corner first.
Well, he's going to take some catching now. He's just got to negotiate the tricky little descent. There's a couple of sharp right-hand bends before the turn into the finishing straight.
Well, he took a quick look back, but that looks to me to be an advantage good enough to win the stage. Yeah. Look at the man. He really has profited, hasn't he, from the hard work of Tony Martin. 10 seconds already. That is a very useful working cushion. And 1:25 back to the next group that contains Greg Henderson, the yellow jersey. So Henderson is going to lose the race lead here.
Yeah, it's looking like a great piece of work by Albacini today, and of course the HEC Columbia team. But just saw him there skid. He had a little bit of a fright then, I would have thought.
That'll make the hard jump, but now he's finding the big gear, and he keeps taking those looks back, so he is anxious, but that's a superb advantage.
It is. You've just got this fast sweeping left-hander, and then 2 right-hand bends in consecutive before the finishing straight, and he's inside the last kilometre.
And we're back to the climb, and that's Richie Port, the king of the mountains, the Australian, just coming over the top as the leader is now sweeping right. into the finishing funnel, and this is going to be a sweet arrival for him.
He's driving all the way to the line. It's not just about the stage victory, it's the seconds as well.
So we'll keep an eye on the clock. Remember, they started at the stage with Henderson in yellow, 14 seconds ahead of Albacini, but he was 1:25 back the last time check. So it's this man from HTC Colombia that I reckon we're going to crown as the new leader, and that means 3 yellow jerseys in 3 days. It's changed every day. Look at that, the victory salute, the clenched fist. The winner of the stage here is Michael Albacini. Now coming over the line for a good ride second is Ian Bibby, and just behind him is Steen Niernik, and he rides on the Top Sport Flandrian team. 14 seconds has gone, so the yellow jersey is going to go now to Albacini as Meyer crosses the line fourth after being in the hunt for a stage victory for a long way. This is McNally of the Ann Posh Sean Kelly team, and just behind him it's Simon Richardson for Sigma Sport. But here we are, a chance once again to live the closing moments. Michael Albacini wins stage 3, his first win of the year, and that will give him the yellow jersey. King of the Mountains, Richie Port on the left, just going past Tony Martin, and behind Richie Port is Jack Bauer, the Kiwi, who had a bad day on stage 1, but he's had a good one today. And the man at the back of this next train of riders coming in is Greg Henderson, the yellow jersey, and he's 1:27 back from the stage winner, so he's lost a lot of time today. So this epic stage in really tough conditions comes to an end, and the yellow jersey changes for the 3rd time in this Tour of Britain.
From Switzerland to Swansea, Michael Albacini, game, stage and jersey. But as he was the first to acknowledge, he didn't do it on his own.
And Tony did a really fantastic work, was so strong. So he brought me to the pave, and I just go full gas, and I come alone, so it was perfect.
Behind him, the race finished in bits and pieces. 14.5 minutes between the winner and the Lanterne Rouge. All eyes then on the winner and his game-changing move. But how about the performances of the British riders too? Ian Bibby in 2nd, Mark McAnally in 5th, with Simon Richardson 1 behind him. Tony Martin rolled in 9th. This morning's yellow jersey could only manage 13th, losing 1:27 before the time bonus. Brad Wiggins was 61st at 4:59, and Heinrich Hauser disappeared from sight, finishing 72nd. But Albacini, who's won stages of the Tours of Switzerland and Austria, can now add Britain to that list. Richie Port enjoyed a relative day off, but did enough to take 4th on the first climb of the day. He leads that competition by 10 points from Johnny Hogeland. And he still wears the sprint jersey too, even if his designs on yellow took a bit of a knock today. He's 7 clear of Michael Golas. But was this the decisive move of the Tour? HTC with the race lead for the 2nd time. Their plan B goes by the name of Michael Albacini. He and Tony Martin's daring do on the descent from Black Mountain changed everything. Greg Henderson now sits at 1:26 back in 2nd place, although news of his inclusion in New Zealand's World Championship team will have been some consolation. Richie Port is at 1:28, then a hat-trick of Vacansoleil riders all still within sight. Rob Partridge is the highest placed Brit in 10th, but Geraint Thomas, Brad Wiggins and Heinrich Hausler appear to be out of the reckoning now. Well, behind us they're packing up and the Tour of Britain is about to move on, and indeed it did move on today, didn't it, on the race. Dean Downing, there were 2 stories today. One we'll come to in a minute, but the other is, how well did HTC Columbia perform? What did you find out?
Yeah, I spoke to Brian Holman. He had a game plan from the off to win the stage and take the yellow jersey, and the boys executed that perfectly.
Now, it's one thing putting the hammer down as they did on a climb, but to attack on a descent in these conditions, that takes some doing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy, and Tony Martin's got the World Championships in 2 weeks for the time trial, so it was a little bit crazy for him, but he paid off for his teammate Albacini.
Absolutely. Now, the second big question, and I know you know it's coming, what on earth went wrong with Sky today?
Henderson, he just didn't climb as well as he thought he could today.
So given that that's the case, where's their plan B?
Yeah, plan B, they put 2 of their GC riders out of contention yesterday. So
you're talking about the effort that Wiggins and Thomas put into getting Henderson the win?
Yeah, they did a massive effort, but they were minutes down on Greg Henderson when he won, so what is their plan B?
Well, they'll have to do something, won't they, because they're almost under orders to win this race in some ways. So tomorrow? Tomorrow's
the hard stage. It has the most climbs in it. It's going to be a tough day, and hopefully we're going to see some fireworks again.
You certainly can't rule it out. Despite the damp squib of a weather, this race is anything but a damp squib race. Tomorrow we go from Minehead to Teignmouth, and as Dean said, it is brutally hard. I know, I rode it the other day.